Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. Sven from Larian Studios did an interview yesterday with the Drop Frames podcast, which is hosted by the streamers Cohh Carnage, JP, and Ezekiel. It was a fantastic interview, and I'll leave a link down in the description so you can check it out for yourself. Interesting tidbits regarding Baldur's Gate 3 came out of the discussion, and I'll review that information here. Some of it is spoilers, and I will save that for a section at the end, so stick around if spoilers doesn't bother you. Let's start with the information regarding Baldur's Gate 3's release. Larian Studios has submitted a final build of the game to Steam for the public to receive. This is equivalent to the game going gold, although since digital releases are much more prevalent, that's not a term that holds significance anymore. This development lends even more credibility to the August 3rd release date on PC being real. Larian is continuing to patch the game, and a release date fix will almost certainly come out as well. 10 more days, and years of anticipation will finally come to a close. I cannot wait to experience it with all of you. Baldur's Gate 3 will officially release at 10 a.m. Pacific time. It's not clear if you will be able to preload the game. Apparently, when early access was first released, the traffic was so heavy it shut down Steam, and there's a concern that this will happen once again. Preloading would help to limit that traffic, so hopefully it will be an option. The full version of Baldur's Gate 3 will require a complete reinstallation, so having the early access version will not help that process go faster. For those who are curious, the game will require 150 gigs of space. There is some support that won't be available upon release, but Larian Studios plans to add over time. Work has already started to get the game verified on Steamdeck, but it most likely will not be ready prior to full release. There is still no word regarding Mac and Xbox release dates, although they are still committed to releasing on those platforms. The game will also not have any mod support upon release, but Larian does plan to add this later down the line. Of course, that hasn't stopped the modders, and there's already a large selection of mods available for early access. I am sure many of them will be updated quickly for the full release as well. Dodge and ready actions will not ship with the game, despite being a part of 5e mechanics. Sven fully expects that modders will add it into the game, and he is curious how seamlessly it will work with BG3 mechanics. Seems like there's the possibility that if modders figure it out, Larian will add it into the full game. Larian unfortunately does not plan to add a Dungeon Master mode or toolkit. I know this is a disappointment for many people who are hoping to craft their own adventures in the amazing world that has been created. Maybe if there's a large enough swell of support for the feature, Larian will change their minds. Personally, I would like to see them focus their efforts on a full expansion and let modders figure out how to create a DM experience. Speaking of which, at this time, Larian Studios has put their full focus on the launch of the game, and there are no current DLC plans. A couple of people had brought this topic up during my BG3 live streams, and I stand by prior statements that there's no way Larian Studios doesn't do an expansion for this game. Yes, they walked away from DOS 1 and 2, but there's way more money on the line this time. Plus, considering we end the game at level 12, there's plenty of room for them to add higher level content. Alright, now let's move over to some of the content in the game. Rolling for your stats during character creation is not an option that will be available due to production reasons. There was simply not enough time to put in the feature. For those who didn't play the previous Baldur's Gate games, you had to roll and receive random figures for all your stats. Some people would spend an hour rolling over and over again until receiving the perfect list of stats that they were looking for. In Baldur's Gate 3, you will manually assign your ability scores instead. As has been previously announced, you can multiclass in the game, and Sven confirmed that when doing so, each of the classes will count as a tag for you during dialogue. Classes get unique dialogue throughout the game that sometimes can help you persuade a person even if you don't have any good persuasion skills. It is possible for you to make a build with all 12 classes so you can accumulate all the tags, although that's probably not a very viable option. Speaking of class tags, they mention if you change the class of an origin character, the game will still treat them as having the original class. As many people people have noted, the classes are tightly woven into what the origin characters are. You can respec for an unspecified amount of gold, but 2 origin characters have a locked-in subclass. I would assume that would be Shadowheart with her Cleric Trickster subclass, and Will with his Warlock Fiend subclass. Again, you can change origin characters to a different class, but it will probably feel a little weird, since in dialogue, they will still be treated as having the original class. Speaking of dialogue, the player who kicks off a conversation is still going to be the one who drives it. Other party members cannot just jump into the conversation, even if they are playing in multiplayer. They can still recommend dialogue options and provide spells, such as guidance, which will aid you in persuading people you meet. Races that are considered rare and unique in Baldur's Gate will have more unique reactivity compared to more standard options. Obviously, it makes sense that Vincke and Dragonborn will get a little more surprise reactions compared to humans and elves. Of course, this doesn't mean that there isn't a ton of reactivity for the more standard races. The camping system has gone through several different versions. Laren experimented with forcing you to be outside of a dungeon before being able to rest, but playtesters hated that. There are still danger zones where you are not able to rest, but not as many as they had initially planned. The amount of camping supplies you have determines how often you can rest. While camping, you can have conversations with your party members, and the order in which you do this can be very important. Conversations with one party member may impact what content you can see from another party member. Swen mentioned that Baldur's Gate 3 is not a game where seeing all the content in 1 or even 2 runs is possible. If your first conversation in camp is with Lae'zel, and then you walk over to Shadowheart, she might distrust you, automatically assuming you and Lae'zel are plotting against her. Consequently, this will change the dialogue she provides, and she might just close the conversation outright, whereas if you had spoken to her first, things would be different. Swen stressed that the game will always present the content you really need to see, so you won't miss crucial quests in this way, but you are also not going to see all the different dialogues or permutations. And what I found to be a surprising note, Swen said when playing Baldur's Gate 3, he would always pick a custom character as opposed to picking an origin. Considering how dedicated Laren has been to crafting unique origins for people to play with, I found this very surprising to hear. Most of you probably already know this by now, but during the podcast, it was announced that popular streamer and voice actor Cohh Carnage is going to voice a character in Baldur's Gate 3. Specifically, he is going to be a descendant of Nuber, who is an extremely annoying character you could meet in Baldur's Gate 1. Like his ancestor, Neighbor won't stop talking and might be so annoying that you end up having to kill him, potentially by throwing him in the river. I've never consistently watched Cole's streams, but I have heard very good things about him, and by all accounts, he deserves the opportunity. Plus, you all know I am a huge fan of good marketing, and it definitely seems like this move was well received by the fandom. Before we wrap up the non-spoiler section, I want to remind you that we are currently running a giveaway for 2 Baldur's Gate 3 keys. I'll leave a link in the description to the video that walks through the rules, but basically it's a competition to name our community. Click the link in the description to join our Discord and leave a comment in the giveaway channel with what you think our new name should be. Make sure you upvote any of the other selections that you think are really cool names as well. Alright, that ends the section that I consider to be non-spoiler. For those of you who got this far, thank you so much. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. For the rest of you, let's cover a couple of tidbits Swen mentioned that I am not sure were already known. Please note that many people will watch this video without viewing this section, so put up spoiler tags if you make a comment referencing this information. First, Swen mentioned that in his opinion, you should not play the Dark Urge as your first origin story. The reason for this is your perspective changes significantly as the Dark Urge compared to the other origin options, and it will be more beneficial for you to understand how different things are by having already played the game. It almost feels like TDU is the game's version of Thane from Divinity Original Sin 2. You understood significantly more about the main story by playing Thane compared to any of the other origin options. He also mentioned that he had just finished doing a run with TDU where he had attempted to be as evil as possible, going all out with the crazy violent options. I found this to be an interesting note because he also said that Lae'zel and Shadowheart were still companions on this run. From the way TDU was described during the last panel, I was a little concerned it would be like playing Swarm That Walks in Wrath of the Righteous, which was a path considered so heinous that all your party members leave if you decide to walk it. Seems like that's not the case in Baldur's Gate 3, and you can be a pure personification of evil while at the same time maintaining a full party. Great stuff. The last tidbit Swen let slip is that it appears Minx also has a tadpole. How that comes about is not made clear, but I definitely don't remember it being mentioned before. There was also a discussion about whether or not you can talk with Boo if you are a druid or use the appropriate spell. He was vague about this, but it's definitely clear Larian has considered the players would want to do it, and there might be a surprise in store if you try. I'll definitely give it a shot. That's all the information I have from the podcast. Like the rest of you, I cannot wait for us to have full access to the game. Hope all of you enjoyed this video. Take care.